this is Liz from People I Think Are Cool, a bi-weekly podcast where I interview my favorite creatives from across the globe. If you're looking for a dose of creative inspiration, then go to peopleithinkarecool.com or subscribe to People I Think Are Cool on iTunes and Stitcher.
You like film, from cult to classic, from blockbuster to B-movies. And there just isn't that one place with all the fan fervor and passion that's covering the kind of mad, diverse brilliance that you love.
Well, that's where you're wrong.
AfterMovieDiner.com is that fan-built movie nirvana just for you, featuring the sweet, sweet writings of the wife dork herself. AfterMovieDiner.com. Go there. Be the best you can be.
Listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast, the official podcast of the Alamo Drafthouse Winchester.
Welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast. Joining us is Lisa Gullickson, wife dork.
Oh, yeah, happy Friday. I have a line. I did it.
Asleep.
I'm not asleep. I was concentrating.
Were you waiting for Brian to chime in?
I know that I'm first in the rotation, so I've got my freaking game face on.
Okay.
And also joining us is Brad Gullickson, mouth dork.
Sup?
And I'm your host, Darren Smith, the Disco Dork. And welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast. Fistful Friday.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back, because Lisa, you were not on our last Fistful. Am I correct?
I was not. What was it a fistful of?
A fistful of summer movie anticipation.
Yes.
Oh.
Where you were going to name the new Shaft sequel as your favorite movie that you're anticipating this summer.
Well,
No.
you know, the Shaft is my favorite part. So.
All right. This week in honor of
like even out of context is a weird thing to say.
It's a weird, like,
It's
the
just like-
Shaft is your favorite part?
Favorite part.
Because that minuses, I guess, the cojones and the mushroom.
You know what?
Right?
Yeah, which is like a weird. I mean, I guess that's where
You're just really into cylinders.
So, in honor of Detective Pikachu, this week we have.
I shouldn't be. I'm getting my. This is the week I get my podcast license revoked.
You're making up for lost times, Lisa. Apparently, we have a fistful of detectives.
Oh, you
So-
should announce it again because I was muttering to myself.
It's okay. In honor of the release of Detective Pikachu, we have a fistful of detectives.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, you know,
Yay.
if I gotta be honest, the choice for the first live action Pokemon movie to be a Detective Pikachu film is very odd to me.
Is it? I know nothing about Pokemon. Is this weird?
It is very weird. It is very weird.
Because normally we would be about catching those guys in those balls.
You know what?
Isn't it about finding somebody's dad? No, that's what the movie's about. What's
You're right.
Pokemon about?
It's about a kid named Asham learning life lessons through his friendship with Pikachu. Pokemon is short for pocket monsters. So it's like that little game that was popular on iPhones where you would walk around.
I played that.
Well, that's what the TV show is. Ash is the lead kid. Ash Ketchum is his name. And he goes around and he searches for new monsters, and he uses the monsters that he's already collected to fight those monsters. And when they win,
But that's not what's happening in this movie?
That is not what's happening in this movie. Ash is not a detective. He's not really doing any detective work in the
Is
TV
he
series.
Ash? Is Justice
No,
Smith
Pokemon
Ash?
is-
There is no Ash Ketchum to be found. Yeah.
okay.
So, like that's why it's so odd. From the trailers, at the very least, it doesn't seem like it connects in any way, narratively.
I
to
like
the
that
TV
mime thing. He looks
That's
cool.
That's
Cool.
funny.
Oh, I love
that
all
makes
the
me
Pokemon.
that makes me chuck every time.
show. Yeah. So, which we've seen it already, and it's great. So go out.
Oh,
and check it out.
yeah. We all watched it last night, Thursday.
I stopped playing Pokemon Go when it became about fighting monsters. Like I liked it when it was just about going out and making friends with
Catch 'em,
little. Yeah, I like to catch them. But when they stopped giving me free Pokeballs, I was like, "Fuck this noise."
Oh, all right. Well, with that being said, Lisa, would you be so kind as to let us know your number 5 in your fistful of detectives?
My number 5 is the greatest of all detectives of the rodent variety. It is the 1986 Disney classic, The Great Mouse Detective.
All right.
When I was bouncing ideas off of Brad in the car, I was like, I like the Gray Mouse Detective, but do you know what I really like? I really like the second one when they're in New Orleans, and I'm like going like, what was that called? What was that called? And then all of a sudden I was like, oh no, that's the Rescuers. I really like the first Rescuers movie. And
You love the Rescuers Down Under.
no. I prefer the original because that's the one I had the VHS of. Is the first Rescuers, and I prefer it to the Great Mouse Detective. But if you're going with my solving crimes, my third favorite film is the Great Mouse Detective, number 5. Great cast: Vincent Price as Professor Rathbone.
Oh wow!
Who has a plot to kidnap the Queen and replace her with a robot.
I clearly don't remember a single thing about this movie.
Same.
I remembered the really terrifying. It's like a henchman who's like a peg-legged bat named Fidget. I didn't remember his name was
That
Fidget. I had to
sounds cool.
Google that, but he was terrifying. And then I like prepping for this episode. I saw that this is a factoroonie just for Brad.
Oh.
That Fidget is played by Candy Candido, who is your favorite
What?
part of every Alamo pre-show.
What?
He's the one meatball.
Oh, God, no.
He's that guy. But The Great Mouse Detective, super fun. I think it's a great introduction
hate that guy.
for kids to the Sherlock Holmes idea.
Yeah.
Like, I forget the name of, I guess, the main mouse. I forget his name. Oh, Basil.
Basil. Yeah.
Basil.
Because of Basil Rathbone, I'm guessing.
Yes. But he plays the violin and, he prides himself on being super observant and, he puts everybody in grave danger until the very last second where he's able to put the clues together and they're like trapped in this like Rube Goldberg mousetrap device and they get out and they save the queen and it's great.
All right.
It's super fun and but not as fun as the Rescuers. But probably on par fun with the Rescuers Down Under.
All right.
One meatball.
Lisa, stop.
Brad, you're number 5.
I don't know what this says about me, but when someone suggested a Fistful of Detectives, which may actually have been me. Was it me?
I think so.
Yeah, it was. Well, the first detective that popped into my mind is a morally questionable detective, and the film series is probably not a good film series to promote in any way, but I'm going to do it anyway. I was really into the Zatoichi movies.
Yes.
Loved the Zatoichi films. That actor, Shintaro Katsu, his brother played Ogami Ito in Lone Wolf and Cub. So I watched all those Lone Wolf and Cub movies, loved those. And in my obsession to watch all the Lone Wolf and Cub movies and all the Zatoichi movies, it led me to a trilogy of films, affectionately called Hanzo the Razor, and played by Shintaro Katsu. And it starts with the first film, Sword of Justice. And the Sword of Justice in question is Shintaro Katsu's penis. And he uses this as his method of detection. And by detection, I mean he assaults women. And they love him so much that they reveal all their secrets.
Is the razor part a metaphor?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a metaphor.
Yeah.
They're really uncomfortable watches, especially when you're like 15 years old. And guess what? They're still really uncomfortable watches. And I tried to watch Sword of Justice a few years ago after I rewatched Lone Wolf and Cub because the Criterion Channel put it out. It's an ugly movie. It's a gross movie. It's disgusting.
Aren't there like shots from the perspective of the razor?
Of the penis, yes. The camera is actually placed inside the penis as it's inserting, and we get to see penal POV, which is my favorite.
PPOV?
It's the PPOV. And the movies are wrong, okay? They're bad. They're bad films.
The funny thing about them is I feel like I have like memories of Hanzo the Razor.
They're
and
traumatic.
I don't know if it's because I've watched this film or I've just had it described to me weirdly on multiple occasions where it's just like I've made my own version in my mind.
Yeah. There's a scene where like someone's trying to beat his penis because it's just such a good weapon and they got to get rid of it, but they don't cut it off. They just keep beating his penis.
Those movies are fucking nuts.
Yeah.
And like their friend is like an albatross. Oh no, I'm thinking of The Rescuers again.
Very different than the
Not a
Rescuers.
Disney film.
Not a Disney film. I don't know. Like, I would highly recommend somebody watching Zatoichi, and I'd highly recommend people watching Lone Wolf and Cub.
Yes.
They're
absolutely.
amazing
Absolutely.
films.
But they're not about
And
detectives.
those films have some questionable exploitation elements to them, certainly. But Hanzo the Razor, he's a detective.
Yeah.
He's also a monster and a bad dude, and we shouldn't celebrate him. So why is he on your list, Brad? I don't know. He's the first guy that came into my head. Came into my head.
Hanzo the Razor came onto your
All
head.
right,
Came
all
into
right,
your head.
all right. My number 5. I'm gonna get the most obvious pick out of the way. Yeah. So I apologize if this is on anyone else's list. But I'm gonna have to go with Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes, starring Robert Downey Jr.
Fun.
And not specifically because of Robert Downey Jr., but more because of the injection of Guy Ritchie's style into this particular character and storytelling regarding this character. Robert Downey Jr. I like him as Sherlock Holmes, but what I really gravitate towards the most is, again, Guy Ritchie's his film language, his stylistic choices with this character, the speed manipulation of the frame rate at times, the voiceover of Sherlock when he is thinking, he's problem solving, and then you see it play out in real time.
Well, the way that they perfectly realize Sherlock Holmes as an action hero using the logic of Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
And the cinematography and editing of Guy Ritchie is really awesome.
Yeah.
The match of Robert Downey Jr.'s like frenetic energy that he has just on his own, matched with Guy Ritchie, matched with Sherlock Holmes, who's always been kind of a cool customer.
Those
fun.
movies, this first one in particular, they really, really work for me.
I do. Same.
I need to rewatch them.
Me too. And I hear that there's the third one that is being worked on.
I mean,
now,
he doesn't
so.
seem to be with the Avengers anymore. Spoilers.
Right. So I'd be curious
Jeez.
to see.
Just saying,
If
$2 billion.
I would hope that Guy Ritchie comes back to lens that film, because it'd be a shame if it's just Robert Downey Jr. Again, because the reason this is on my list is the director Guy Ritchie and what he brings to this classic literary character.
He's not too busy doing Aladdin sequels and Legend of the Sword sequels,
God
is he?
damn it. No, I would hope not. So, yeah, shout out to Brian, the turtle dork. You got some Legend of the Sword love. There you go. Lisa, what's your number 4?
Do 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 do. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. It is Jessica Fletcher, played by Angela Lansbury. Murder, She Wrote. I'm really hoping that is the theme song to Murder, She Wrote, because now after I've sung it, I'm feeling down. Okay,
I mean, it wasn't a very good version of it, but yes, you got the gist.
I'm glad.
I watched a lot of that.
Did you?
So did I.
Oh, yeah. My mom was way into it.
Yeah.
My family was also super into it, and it was one of the few shows we were allowed to stay up late to watch. Like, we would watch it like as a family.
That's
so that theme song is imbued with the excitement of being able to stay up past 8:30.
Yeah.
Those were my parents, where it's just like they're like, good night, and I'm like, it's still light outside. Have a sweet dreams. I can hear kids playing right outside my window. But we were allowed to stay up late for Jessica Fletcher and Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah.
And like when I was, poking around the Wikipedia looking for factoids to share, I'm like, I've got to rewatch this because it's been a long time and I have super fond memories of it. There are 12 seasons.
Jeez.
Jessica Fletcher was solving mysteries on Cabot Cove from 1984 to 1996.
Whoa.
That is a lot of murders.
Yes.
That's a dangerous
Very
place.
suspicious.
They should probably just
she
nuke
left.
that from space.
Right.
She's
Only way
left,
to be sure.
She's left the cove. I feel entitled. Like I feel like it's so beloved that they should just give me the DVDs. I
And
feel
they're
like
still
ours
publishing
now.
those Murder, She Wrote novels.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yep. It was completely weird when later, like after watching Murder, She Wrote and going like, Angela Lansbury is Jessica Fletcher in IRL.
Yeah.
And then I watched Sweeney Todd for the first time,
Yeah.
where she plays Mrs. Lovett, and she's like baking people into meat pies. I'm like, this is weird. This time I definitely know who it was. It was
Yeah,
her
it
and
was her.
Sweeney making pies.
Angela Lansbury in The Manchurian Candidate, the original one. She's a monster.
Oh, yeah.
Later, and apparently Lynn Carriou, who was in the original cast of Sweeney Todd with her, is in an episode of
course.
He guest stars in and I guess everybody's guest starred in
Murder, She Wrote.
Murder, She Wrote, 1986.
I always
and
liked
1996.
the reoccurring detective character played by Jerry Orbach in Murder, She Wrote.
Oh,
Trust me, Darren.
Okay, because I've never seen it.
We should have a
I wasn't allowed to
podcast.
stay up past 8:30.
Yeah, you were missing it.
Just kidding.
We would call our podcast Murder, She Friends. And we would watch it, and we would become friends, closer friends
Through
through
murder.
watching.
If I
Murder,
never
She Wrote.
watch an episode of Murder, She Wrote again, it'll be too soon.
Damn.
How dare you?
I'm just saying it was boring. It was stuff my
Oh,
mom.
I thought you
It
liked
was
it.
compelling. She
it's
had
a
lots
memory.
of friends. Like, from watching Murder, She Wrote, you really learn the value of staying in touch with people because, like, they'll either cause a crime or help you solve a crime, which makes you super cool.
I'll take Simon and Simon or Magnum PI any day.
Yeah, Hardcastle and McCormick.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, they had a bad car.
They did.
Was MacGyver a detective?
No, he was a genius.
He detected a few things, maybe.
Did he?
I don't know.
He was an
I never
inventor.
watched it. I never watched
neither.
it. Yeah.
It was another show we were allowed to watch, but then one day, like the next day, we all got stomach viruses after watching MacGyver, and then I was like, well, clearly we're all allergic to MacGyver, and I put the kibosh on it, and nobody in my house was allowed to watch MacGyver anymore.
Makes sense. What about Columbo? Was he a detective?
Yo,
Yes,
yeah,
of
for
course.
sure.
He was a
sure.
super
boring. Boring.
No,
Wow.
super fun. I also
No.
like Monk. If we're talking about
Boring.
TV detectives, I
Monk
love
too?
Monk.
You
Yeah,
don't like
boring.
Tony Shalhoub? Damn.
I like Tony Shalhoub.
All right. Well,
Monk's
who do you
boring.
like, Brad? What's your number 4? Jesus.
I like Detective Ray Cameron as played by Tom Atkins in Night of the Creeps. He
damn
goes
it.
up against slug beasts that are invading the brains of teenagers in sororities.
He's not boring.
He's not boring because it's Miller time. I love Tom Atkins.
Yeah.
And this is absolutely his most scenery chewingest role ever.
It's my favorite
Uh,
of his.
Total blast.
Yeah.
That sequence where you go into his dream.
Oh, yeah.
And he's on like some tropical beach dressed in a white tuxedo with like a coconut drink and his sunglasses on. You're like, oh, that is what everyone's fantasy should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's Miller time.
Night of the Creeps. Holy shit. That's Fred Decker, right?
Yeah, Fred Decker. He did that right before doing the Monster Squad.
Yeah.
I want to show it to Lisa. She's never seen it before. I'm just not so sure if she would like all the slugs shooting from people's mouths.
Oh.
Are they shooting
I mean, it's like one long slug that just fires out of a mouth.
like fast?
Yeah, fast.
I don't know. I don't like
There's
the
no
slug
liquid.
scene.
No
I don't
liquid.
like the slugs in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't like slugs, period. But
I
love that
think as
movie.
animals, they're pretty cute.
Wow.
Like a banana slug. Have you ever seen like a
No,
banana
I don't.
slug?
I don't even want to think
They're
about it.
so
Talk about it.
cute. But I'm speaking as a person whose favorite part is the shaft.
All right. So my number 4 is that's a great pick, Brad.
Thank you.
My number 4 is going to be Detective Vincent Hanna, as played by one Al Pacino in Michael Mann's Heat.
Yeah, that's a great pick.
The
I hear he likes to get that head right up in.
man, I'm trying to trying to stay away from the innuendo, but I keep doing it.
You're
huh?
podcasting with the Gullickson, sir.
I am. I'm gonna get used to it one day. The reason why I picked this particular detective is because I like what Michael Mann does with the character in regards to, we do see him doing detective work, whether it be via stakeout or whether it be him looking at a crime scene,
Love it.
putting together what happened. But we also get a glimpse of the effects of that continual detective work in regards to his family and his relationships and with his daughter and his ex-wife and his new love interest, and how one is going to have to suffer at the hands of the other. If he's going to be all in with his family, he's not going to be able to be continuously in the streets to gather all of this information to be such a great detective, or if he's going to be in the streets to be this great detective, he's not going to be a present father or a present lover or husband. And that duality is expertly played by Al Pacino, but also expertly showcased and shot by Michael Mann in the film. So yeah, when he finally comes face to face with Robert De Niro's character, which also the film uses to show both sides of his existence, him trying to balance out a home life and his profession.
It's the ultimate cops and robbers movie.
Yeah. And so I forget that Vincent Hanna is a detective in that movie. I just always think of him as like just a regular cop, or out to get the bad guy. Like you say, cops and robbers. I look at it in those black and white terms, but and upon closer inspection, I was reminded that he is a detective. And then when you think about him, when they show him on the job, he is doing detective work. And so, yeah, I have to put him on my list. It's number 4. So, Lisa.
Yes.
Your number 3.
My number 3, I decided to go with a sci-fi pick because I love the sci-fi genre. Yeah. But I didn't want to go with Harrison Ford in the original Blade Runner because that would be too obvious. So I am going with K from Blade Runner 2049. Yes. Played impeccably by I almost said the very handsome Ryan Gosling, but I'm trying to be less shallow and not talk about actors by how attractive they are first.
But he is super, super handsome.
He is very, inarguably dreamy. I'm making it worse. But he is like the perfect detective because he goes beyond, discovering the crime. He discovers way too much, and then he scares himself with the truth. He goes too deep.
Yeah.
Oh, in too deep.
All right.
Now, that was your mind. I'm talking about story-wise. I'm talking about him making self-discoveries about his own origins and asking questions beyond what people thought beyond.
He's penetrating the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pervasively penetrating the past.
Oh, okay. Yep.
With his AI girlfriend, Joy.
Yes.
That he loves.
Yes.
And respects.
Yes.
So sad.
Yeah.
That movie is great.
That movie is super great.
I've watched it a couple times at home on a Blu-ray, and I like it. I enjoy it, but it is one of those experiences where I miss the theatrical.
Oh, man.
And not just the visuals, but the sound.
Yeah. The sound design in that movie is amazing. I'm due for a rewatch of that. I was all excited. Oh, I have a 4K Blu-ray of Blade Runner 2049. I need to pop that fucker in and rewatch it soon. Thank you for that pick, Lisa, for reminding me of what a gem that movie is.
Pop it in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. All right, Brad, your number 3?
My number 3 is an animated kids film from a few years ago, not too long ago. I'm talking about not a detective. She's an officer. She's Officer Judy Hopps in Zootopia. She partners with civilian Fox Nick Wilde, voiced by Jason Bateman. Officer Judy Hopps is voiced by Jennifer Goodwin. And the two of them investigate a series of incidents in which citizens of Zootopia revert back to their primal self.
So while she's a cop, she does have to do detective work.
She's Sherlock Holmes, is it?
Yeah.
And I really think this is an underrated gem of a movie. I know it was successful and it made a bunch of money, but I don't think people talk enough about what a great allegory it is for our society and how there are genuine stakes. There is a genuine sense of a real community, complete with the troubles that come with communities. And I think it really champions empathy in a way that I think films are designed to do. Yeah. And children films should really make it their priority in this day and age. And I think Zootopia it's a gorgeous movie. It's a funny movie, but I find it to be an extremely moving movie.
I agree. Great pick. My number 3 is going to be this character, like Judy Hopps, is not an official detective, but ends up doing some detective work of his own, and it is the character of Brendan, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt in Rian Johnson's Brick. I haven't seen this film in a long time.
I just showed it to Lisa not too long ago.
I've only seen it the one time, but I'll say that it doesn't hold up.
It's not true. It's great, Darren.
Oh, well, you know what? I would be very curious to revisit it to see if it does or does not hold up. I just remember being, and this is, seeing this film, Brad, was before, like, I met you.
Yeah.
And before you would introduce me into film noir. So when I'd seen Brick, and one of the characteristics of the film is, even though it is told in a modern day context in this high school, it is very much using the language of film noir.
Yeah.
So much so it's almost like that Leonardo DiCaprio Romeo and Juliet, when it's modern day, but they're speaking Shakespearean, and you can just tell.
It takes you a little while to get acquainted or adjusted
to the rhythm. Yeah, but that was something that always struck me as being unique. And I remember the first time I watched the film, not necessarily being able to get around or get over that, but that was it. I don't want to say it prevented me. That was something that I focused on more so than the story and the narrative. I mean, I got what was happening, but like at every turn, I was just marveling at like what they're just speaking so differently. This just feels so different. It feels like it feels like a movie. Like it doesn't feel like they're talking like natural people. So I don't know. It was one of the allures of the film to me. I just was fascinated by it. And the fact that, why aren't there other films that do this? And I don't know. So it was one of the things that made the film stand out to me. And I just remember thinking that Rian Johnson was a really cool director to make this particular stylistic choice for the film. But I mean, if you've seen, as I would come to do, knowing Brad, if you've seen any number of noir films, then you would recognize, a lot of the subgenre tropes of those particular types of films. And I think that upon rewatch, I will appreciate not just those things more, but just the movie in general and the performances. I remember the performances. I remember being a fan of the performances because delivering that particular type of speak, right? I found that the actors did it convincingly.
Yeah.
So I feel like, a lot of, basically the movie rests on the performances, because if you don't sell what they're saying and how they're saying it, then I could see one easily being taken out of the movie.
And Joseph Gordon-Levitt excels at nailing that hard-boiled dialogue.
Yeah.
He's really good at the movie.
Yeah, and he was young at the time.
Yeah.
Because this was this was 2005.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Like I just remember when you said A Fistful of Detectives, there's two movies. My number one and this one, like popped in my head simultaneously. And although, like I said, this isn't your typical detective, that story, and by way of him navigating that story, is very typical of the noir detective type of character. So yeah, that's my number 3.
I found it very impressive how fast everybody could talk with their heads so far up their butts.
Oh, all right.
I didn't buy into the artifice.
Whatever.
The orifice?
The artifice.
Oh.
Get your head out of
My
Joseph
butt.
Gordon-Levitt's butt.
All right. Your number 2.
My number 2 is an actual real noir film because I'm actually classy.
Yeah, okay.
And sophisticated. and in our Week in Dork episode, we were talking about John Singleton. and strong directorial debuts. And I would say that John Huston had a very strong directorial debut with The Maltese Falcon. And of course, Humphrey Bogart's Sam Spade would be the detective in this movie.
Often considered the first film noir.
To me, like, this movie is so tremendously fun, and I forget that it's a film noir. It has like a femme fatale type character in Mary Astor. Like, is she a good guy? Is she a bad guy? We don't know. It doesn't go to some of the darker places. Like, what's the one with the coffee in the face?
Oh, the Big Heat.
It doesn't go to the places the Big Heat goes. To me, it's like a fun whodunit. And you get turned around so many times. You're like, I don't know. Is Sam Spade the good guy or the bad guy? I have no idea what's happening.
That's the sign of a good film noir.
Yeah. We're just, like, the blame just goes around and around.
I think this leads a scumbag. Yeah, definitely.
Definitely, but you want to see him succeed.
Yeah,
He's trying so hard. And, you know, he plays his cards so close to his chest. You don't know what Sam Spade is really up to.
Bogart's just so damn cool.
He is so
I'm
damn
gonna start
cool.
smoking.
And Peter Lorre as the, like, slap him around Joel Cairo.
Yep, so good.
It's a great movie. I don't know. Have I seen it on the big screen?
You have. The Alamo
have.
played it not too long ago.
So fun. But it's like endlessly rewatchable, quotable, wonderful. It's a classic for a reason.
Yeah, it is one of those movies where you've heard a lot of the dialogue and you know the ending probably, and you know probably a bunch of the scenes from it. But when you watch it for the first time and just see it all play out, you're still marveled by it.
Yeah.
So fun.
Great pick, Lisa.
Thank you.
Brad, your number 2.
My number 2 is also a film noir, a classic film noir from about 15 years after The Maltese Falcon. And I think it's the second or third homework assignment I ever gave Darren after we started this podcast. It's Detective Mike Hammer, as played by Ralph Meeker in Kiss Me Deadly.
Yeah.
And talk about a sad ending.
Jesus.
The basic premise is Mike Hammer's driving home one night, and he picks up this girl who's hitchhiking. He's forced off the side of the road by another car. He's knocked on his head, and they murder the woman he had just picked up. And he starts to investigate who that woman was, why was she killed, and it leads to this great what's it. Everyone's looking to get the great what's it. And he finally finds the great what's it, much to all of our shame and disgust, because I'm pretty sure this movie ends with the apocalypse.
Which is amazing. Like, when I'm thinking about that, like, that is an amazing ending.
It's like the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah.
Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
In fact, the Ark of the Covenant visually references the ending of this movie.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen Kiss Me Deadly and you love Raiders of the Lost Ark, you need to watch this film. Mike Hammer, Ralph Meeker, such a bad dude. Not a nice guy. His dialogue is so hateful and grotesque.
Yeah.
And I love every morsel of it.
Yeah.
It's delicious.
Great pick. All right. My number 2, I was going to put an audible. I am going to put an audible. But I'm going to cheat. My number 2 was going to be Detective Roger Murtaugh.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
But then, like, the sequel films fuck that up.
Oh, true.
Because he doesn't do too much detective work, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with my safety, and that's gonna be Joe Hollenbeck from Tony Scott's The Last Boy Scout. He when we meet Joe Hollenbeck, he is a disgraced former Secret Service agent who has turned to be a down on his luck private eye, and he has to investigate the murder of a very young Halle Berry. Who is the girlfriend of Damon Wayans as Jimmy Diggs, a disgraced former football player. And through Tony Scott's smoky, filtered lens, it lends itself to a very cool, action-packed sort of like, would you call that like a neo-noir?
Yeah, I call it neo-noir. Yeah.
With some very colorful characters. Taylor Negron is in the film, who I love.
So
Kim
good.
Coates is in the movie. I just really love this film. We talked about we were mentioning the opening of this film not too long ago, but that's what made it come to mind. But I've rewatched this not too long ago, and to me, the movie still holds up. It came out in the 90s, I want to say, and it feels like a 90s action movie, but it feels like one of the pinnacles, like the good ones, like the good 90s action.
It's
films.
very Tony Scott also.
It is, which, you know what? I appreciate that. Like, I appreciate... We talk about Tarantino on the podcast a lot, but because he has a definitive voice and visual language, right? And those are the type of directors, those auteurs that I gravitate towards. I like being able to walk into a film at any point and see a single frame and go, "Oh, that's Tony Scott film."
That's a lot of smoke in that room. What's going on?
That's a Tarantino film. And I don't know. The geek in me, you know, the kid, the guy who can look at a particular artist in a comic book and go, "Oh, I know who that artist is. That's Jim Lee." Like I like to be able to do that with my film. So, and Tony Scott was one of those directors who is, for me, instantly recognizable. And you know, it's a great Bruce Willis performance. He's not a handsome, suave, have it all on top of the world action hero. He's very down on his luck, self-depreciating. He's on the outs with his wife or ex-wife. He has a failed relationship, not only with her, but with his daughter. And he's just scrounging by, and he's just trying to scrape together what little dignity, if any, that he has left. In the film, you know, earlier on, he actually doesn't have any. You know, he picks up a lit cigarette off the ground because he has no smokes, and he's not above, you know, smoking someone's scraps. And so, I don't know, I like the way that he starts the movie in a low place. By the second act, he's trying to find some redemption, and by the third, he's just throwing himself into this case to get his family and his new friend to safety. And so, I don't know, I really dig The Last Boy Scout. So yeah, that's my number 2, Joe Hollenbeck. Lisa, your number 1. I have no idea what it could be.
My number 1 is a creepy one, and she's not technically a detective, but she's being used for some type of detective work, and that is FBI trainee Clarice Starling, played by Jodie Foster.
No, that counts. I say that
The
counts.
Silence of
She's
the Lambs.
detecting. Yeah.
She is detecting.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really interesting character because she's put into the center of this film as a means to an end. Well, obviously, every detective has a means to an end because they have to solve the crime. But like, she was put in that position because they thought that Hannibal Lecter would be more open to talking with a young woman. And, you know, the FBI put her in that position. You know, she was, you know, a tool of hers. And then, of course, Hannibal Lecter begins manipulating her as a means to manipulate the FBI and also for his own entertainment. And so she finds herself just being twisted in every direction. And despite that, she's able to make real progress and come to some conclusions. And Hannibal Lecter does end up giving up the goods to a certain degree on Buffalo Bill. But, of course, he does not, you know, tell her everything.
Yeah.
And, you know, she doesn't get everybody. But it's a classic for a reason.
Great
Another
film.
classic.
Great
Pick
film.
it obvious choices. Somebody's gotta.
Yeah.
This is one where I was really glad to see it at the Alamo Draft House on the big screen. I had never seen it before.
Oh, shit.
And those extreme close-ups that Jonathan Demme shoots, they are amazing on the big screen.
Yeah.
It's such a great film.
Yeah. All right.
Great film, gross film.
Gross, but like incredibly compelling.
Great pick, Lisa. All right. Brad, your number 1.
So for my number 1, I have to go to the small screen. All my picks have been theatrical. No, it's not Jessica Fletcher. It's not Columbo. It's not Monk. It's Detective Frank Pembleton, as played by Andre Braugher in Homicide: Life on the Street.
Oh, shit.
Darren, did you ever watch that show?
I did not watch that.
Not a lot of people did. Lisa, you never watched it, did you?
No, I've watched you watch it. Like
Yeah.
he's gone through fits and spurts of like just watching it all the
Yeah,
way through. I've never sat down with it.
122 episodes, 7 seasons, and a movie.
Damn.
Pembleton, like the premise of Homicide: Life on the Street, set in Baltimore, filmed in Baltimore. Based on the book by David Simon, who would go on to co-create The Wire for HBO and Treme and other things. It revolves around the interrogation and putting the suspect in the box. And Frank Pembleton is known for being an expert at getting somebody to confess. And so a lot of the shows will climax inside the box with Frank Pembleton talking down some suspect. And just Andre Braugher, I think we primarily know him now as the cop from
Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Which I've still not watched.
Freaking great.
And
in
that's
that
what I
show.
hear. I hear he's great in it. But this is one of those guys where I always wanted him after Homicide to break out cinematically. I just thought he would be a great lead, and he had a couple stabs at it, and just for whatever reason, it just never connected. But I am glad that he's found a new audience with Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and I'll get to that
He
one
was
day.
so good in Glory.
Oh yeah, he's great in Glory. But Homicide: Life on the Street is his like piece de resistance. I mean, it's Frank Pembleton's such an interesting character. He's not 100% likable. He has a lot of faults, but he is the best man for the job, and he's partnered with this rookie in the first season who just learns to worship him as a god and can never possibly live up to his partner as this amazing detective. And kind of like Al Pacino in Heat, where he struggles to maintain the family life and the work life. I don't know. If you've never watched Homicide: Life on the Street, do yourself a favor. It's not just Law and Order. I know it crossed over with Law and Order a bunch.
Did it?
Yes, many times. Those episodes were always weird and felt off because narratively they're nothing alike. It's nowhere near as formulaic as Law and Order. Yes, it involves the box a lot, but outside of that, it's very, very alive compared to, the wash, rinse, repeat formula of Law and Order. Homicide: Life on the Street is brilliant. Do yourself a favor and watch it.
I really like the spin-off series Men of a Certain Age.
That's not a spin-off series.
It's a mashup of Quantum Leap and Homicide: Life on the Street.
No, it's not. But Andre Braugher is in Men of a Certain Age with Scott Bakula and Ray Romano, and that is also a good show that
Show's
did not
amazing.
get enough eyes on it.
And there's only like 2 seasons.
Yeah, but that's just about middle-aged dudes being whiny.
Oh.
It's good, though.
It's
okay.
great.
I'm believing what Lisa's saying. Like,
No, don't
okay,
believe her.
Okay.
Time traveling.
No.
Andre Braugher
No. Murders doesn't happen.
Oh, okay.
holds hands the entire time.
Damn it, Lisa.
They're struggling with their children.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Not in the box?
Not in the box.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. My number one is another unofficial detective, but someone who, because of a really traumatic circumstances, takes it upon himself to do some detective work. And it is Leonard Shelby, as played by Guy Pearce in Christopher Nolan's Memento. Leonard Shelby is the victim of a crime that results in the death of his wife. And he suffers a traumatic brain injury during this crime and cannot make new memories. And so that, coupled with his urge and need to solve the murder of his wife and find out who killed his wife, sets up an interesting narrative as told by Christopher Nolan and written by his brother, where the narrative is actually given to the audience backwards. And we start at the end of the film and work our way to what would, in a normal flowing narrative, be the beginning of the film. And that, coupled with Leonard Shelby's inability to make memories, is, to me, the genius in the storytelling of this, because unfolding mystery for the audience is also a continual mystery for Mr. Shelby, as he cannot remember encounters with the people that he is doing this detective work through. And one of the ways that he does it in regards to trying to remember these encounters is he tattoos all of these bits of information all over his body. So just visually, that in and of itself is very striking to have a character to have all of these markings on his body, but they're not just tattoos of just objects or tribal sign. They're things that are pertinent to who he is and who he was and what he's trying to discover. And the reveal at the end of the film, which would be the beginning of his story, is so tragic and it's so different and unique to me in that, a normal detective is trying to solve a murder, and his purpose, well, actually it ties into, now that I think about it, it ties into what drives a detective. Like they go on these cases and they throw themselves into it because they feel their purpose is to solve a murder. And the truth in Leonard Shelby's life, in regards to his particular case, is also the tragedy. Yeah. But it's at the center of it. It's his need for purpose.
But that's also a detective trope. Like, you can't solve this one, detective. You're too close to the story. Like, this is Memento is the epitome of you're too close to the story. You're too easily manipulated because of your relationship to the crime,
Right. And the reveal of him saying, well, I did what I set out to do, but it gives me purpose. So I'm going to do it again and again and again. And for him to personally place himself within this infinite loop is
so good.
It's
I haven't watched this in a long time.
Yeah.
I need to go back.
Yeah. So hopefully, because this came out within the still awesome time frame.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to experience it on the big screen again and for a new audience to see this film, because it's my favorite Christopher Nolan film. And I love his later filmography, the movies that will become part of pop culture and make Christopher Nolan a household name. But Memento, because it's my first experience with him in that art house uptown in D.C., knowing nothing about it and being completely blown away. Like, I would love to see it again on a big screen. So
yeah.
That's my number one, Memento. Yeah.
That's also considered a neo-noir according to Wikipedia.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I'd give it neo-noir, yeah.
Yes. Oh, man, Joe Pantoliano, fucking Carrie Ann Moss is great. There's so many great scenes in that film. But yeah, that's going to do it for us. Hit the Turtle Dork up at the Turtle Dork on Twitter and at the Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, or at Brian William Young on Facebook, and ask him what his fistful of detectives would be had he been here with us. You can also hit up Sidewalk Siren at Sidewalk Siren and at Baked Dork on Twitter and Instagram. She's also at Sidewalk Siren on Letterboxd. Brad Gullickson is at Mouth Dork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd, and Untapped. And I am Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, on all social medias. That is going to do it for us. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Go see Detective Pikachu if you haven't. Also, go see The Biggest Little Farm. That comes out in wide release today. And The Hustle comes out today, if I'm not mistaken.
What's The Hustle?
That movie with Rebel Wilson and Catwoman. And The Dark Knight Rises. What's The Dark Knight Rises?
Anne Hathaway?
Anne Hathaway.
I like to think of her as the actress from Serenity.
The actress from Serenity, yes. Not the space science fiction show. But she's in that movie with Rebel Wilson. I want to say it's a gender-flipped Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Oh, yes.
They're calling it The Hustle. So, yeah, that came out this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah.
I'm good.
Or go help in-game blow past Avatar as the highest-grossing film.
It's going to happen.
I was telling Brian. So, yeah, that's going to do it for us. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you all for listening. And until next time.